谷歌大中华区总裁、全球副总裁李开复博士，致欢迎。
各位开发者，欢迎来到2008年谷歌开发者日。这是我们第2次办这样的一个活动。各位去年来过的朋友们可能记得，去年我们在一个小小的房间，几百位开发者跟我们探讨一些谷歌开发出来的 API。但是在过去的12个月，谷歌开发出了一系列的技术。那么我们在今天会把这么多的技术分享给各位。我们认为这些技术能够造成一个新的平台的来临，所以这一次我们刻意的做了一个比较大规模的把这个平台介绍给各位我们的开发者朋友。那这个平台是什么呢？是谷歌平台吗？不是的，这个平台是互联网平台，是 Web 平台，是基于开放式的，是基于标准的一个大家共享的平台。那我们有幸在今天和大家分享我们和很多业者、很多朋友们在这方面的一些对未来的展望。所以今天你在这个大会上会听到很多新的技术，有一些是谷歌推出的，但是所有的都是公开的，是和大家分享的。其实我们并不认为有一个平台的竞争的存在，我们认为平台的战争已经结束，互联网已经赢了。那么我们将一起和大家同心协力地打造这样的一个互联网的平台。谷歌进入中国这3年，我们也多次说，前年是基础年，是打造基础；去年很大的力量是花在产品本土化。那么今年我们会看到更多谷歌的工作，谷歌中国的工作，就是和各位的合作，把我们全球的竞争优势，把我们全球的特别的技术，用公开合作的方式推向中国的开发者朋友。所以今天我相信会是一个重要的里程碑。我们也希望今天你在我们的会议里面能够听到很多为什么互联网平台已经来临的这样的一件事情。那么下面呢，我想介绍今天的主旨演讲者。那么这位其实不需要任何的介绍，她是谷歌全球的第1位女性工程师，而且加入谷歌之后有众多的贡献，包括负责谷歌全球的用户界面和所有的面对消费者的产品。我们的产品副总裁 ，Let me introduce Marissa Mayer。
It's great to see so many people here. One question that we get asked a lot is, what does Google have to do with developers? And that's what today is all about. Us talking to you about what we're doing with developers now, why we care about it, and why you should care about it. And that's why we're excited to be hosting this Developer Day here in Beijing. At a very high level, Google cares about moving the web forward as a platform. The web is the de facto platform for application developers, and we want to help it continue to develop, both in terms of tools for developers and also functionality for users. There are 3 main focuses we have in trying to move the web forward. The first is making the cloud more accessible. The second is making the client more powerful. And the third is making connectivity even more pervasive. Let's start with the first one. What does it mean to make the cloud more accessible? The most popular websites of today, things like search, email, Sina, Sohu, Taobao, Dangdang, all require massive computing capabilities. These are what we call clouds, and unfortunately, they're outside the reach of most developers. At Google, we spend millions of dollars each quarter investing in our infrastructure so we can build applications that involve huge databases of satellite imagery, of applications like search that require real-time, resource-intensive computation, and things like translation among more than 20 languages. That sort of investment is outside the reach of many developers, but we're working to change that. And it's not just about raw computing power. We also want to make sure that we have content available for developers, things like news and video and stock quotes, more accessible to developers to embed in their applications. The second initiative is about making the client even more powerful. When developing for the web, the client is the browser. That's what we're all targeting. And the browser has a lot of great properties. It requires zero install for applications. It's based on open standards like HTTP, HTML, CSS, XML, JavaScript. It's ubiquitous, already installed everywhere. No matter what platform you're developing for or operating system, chances are your user has a browser. And on mobile devices, we're seeing that more and more of those have browsers already built in, and they're becoming increasingly powerful. But the browser still has a long way to go. There's a significant gap between what's possible on the browser versus what's possible on a native or proprietary platform. Don't get me wrong, the browser has come a long way from when HTML was first introduced. Introductions of things like DOM and CSS made great leaps in overall user experience. But it was almost a decade before XML HTTP request was used to achieve things like AJAX applications, Gmail and Google Maps. The HTML5 standard, which introduces the canvas tag, will push user experience further, but we think that overall, the browser isn't innovating fast enough. We believe that the client is capable of much, much more. We want to work to narrow this user experience gap and bring the browser to the point where it equals or even surpasses what's possible in native clients. The third one, making connectivity more pervasive, is particularly relevant here in China because so many users are connected. At the end of 2007, there were more than 200 million internet users in China, and more than 160 million with broadband connectivity. These are astounding numbers. If you look at wireless, the numbers here are even bigger. I think I heard yesterday 550 million cell phones here in China. And with the recent restructuring of Netcom, Unicom, and China Telecom, the promise of 3G is in the very near future. More and more connectivity is becoming pervasive, which has a big impact on how developers write applications. Today, you have to design for connectivity, whether wired or wireless, and that presents new challenges. How do you keep that connectivity pervasive and persistent and open for developers? We're going to talk more about that. These three areas of focus, making the cloud more accessible, making the client more powerful, and making connectivity more pervasive, are really what is driving what Google is doing for developers. But before we get into the details of what we're doing in these areas, it's important to step back and explain Google's motivation. Why are we doing these things? You'll note that this is very different from the standard platform play that most companies would pursue, where they would convince developers to develop applications on top of their platform at runtime. Here we're saying the web is our platform. It's not owned by any single company, so why does Google care? There are two basic reasons. One is that Google was born on the web. It's the only platform our company has ever developed on. And the web is a platform born of consensus. No company giving you a sneak peek of features that will be available 3 years out. It was all of us, collectively, agreeing on a few simple standards and allowing a platform based on those standards to emerge. Google also comes from a world of consensus and partnership. That's how we drive our business forward. That's how we make our business decisions. Our founders, Larry and Sergey, believe that Google owes a lot of gratitude to the web and to open source software. They were able to achieve great things when they started the company, but they were standing on the shoulders of open source software, and that's what made their work possible. The second element is that simply it benefits Google economically. As the web platform improves, This leads to more and better applications. And when there are more and better applications available, users use the internet more. And when internet usage as a whole goes up, that's good for all of us. For Google, increased usage of the web means more Google searches, which means more Google revenue. As a company, we have a significant economic incentive to move the web forward as a platform. And from the revenue we make, we invest millions of dollars into technology that we then open source and give back to the community in projects like Google Gears, Google Web Toolkit, Open Social, and Android. These are all open social projects where we pay for engineers to build things that we then give back to the community. So the virtuous cycle that you see here can continue. So let's get into some specifics. We want to make Google's cloud more accessible to developers. And that means giving programmatic access to the computing resources we've developed over the years. Things like geographic information, search, and translation. Two examples of this are AJAX APIs and gadgets. I'd now like to invite Tom Stocky, our Director of Product Management for Developer Initiatives, to the stage to give a demonstration of AJAX APIs. Welcome, Tom.
So, like Marissa was saying, Google has invested significant computing resources in building out products like Google Maps, Google Translate, Google Search. And through the AJAX APIs, we're opening up those resources to you so you can use them in your own applications. And this means things like news headlines, videos, RSS feeds, Google web search results, image search results, and a whole lot more. So let me get into a demo and show you what I mean. Let me log in first. All right, so what I have here is a very sparse sample page. I've modeled it after a simple blog. And what I'm going to walk through is adding some rich controls and content to this to make the site more interesting and more engaging. So the first thing I want to add to this page is some videos. So here's the code for that. What you can see at the top is that I'm loading the search API, I'm loading a video bar control, I'm using google.load to do this, and then below I'm configuring that control. The most important thing that I'm configuring here is the search queries that are going to be used to return relevant videos. So you can see I've searched for celebrities, and then the YouTube channel for Google developers, and entertainment. And then I configure the video bar, say what kind of player I want, say where it should show up on the page, and I drop it right in. So let's see what that looks like. So on the right side of the page, what you see now is a vertical strip of thumbnail images. Each one of these represents a video. And if a user clicks on one of those, it does the expected thing. It pops up the video, it plays it right in line, it has all the standard controls that you're used to with a video control. You can switch the video while it's playing. It's a pretty straightforward, it's a pretty straightforward interaction model for your users here. And while it looks just like a standalone strip of videos over there, it's actually, there's some pretty deep integration here. So I can do things like have hyperlinks that change what videos show up. So here I've linked this phrase to change the videos to American Idol videos. And so those show up. I also have a search box at the bottom. So if your users wanted to search for something else, let's say baseball, they could have those videos show up. And so what you see here is with just a few lines of JavaScript, I've made the site more engaging, I've added some rich content to it, and I've given users something, a little more to do on the site. So let's put something else on here. Let's pull in an RSS feed. So here, it's the same sort of model as you saw with the video control, but this time it's with a feed control. So at the very top, I'm loading the feed API, then I'm loading what we call a partner bar control, which is a control that's designed to pull in RSS feeds. And I'm pulling in feeds from Shinbot for topics like sports and entertainment. I have a few options at the bottom, and then I tell which div ID I want to put that element into. And let's see what happens when I put that in there. So you can see that now at the bottom of the page, you can see these headlines that are being pulled in from that RSS feed that shinwanet.com provided. But let's say I don't want it to be a horizontal thing. Let's say I want it to be vertical or formatted in some other way. I can do that too. These are all very configurable controls, so you can basically do whatever you want. You can have 4 elements instead of 3. You can format them in whatever way you want. And you'll also see that the styling matches the styling of the page. And we're doing that with some standard CSS. So let's say I now want to add aggregated news headlines from Google News. So here's the code. This is starting to look familiar. You know, at the top I'm loading the search API, then I'm loading the news bar control. And the important configuration option here is the keyword that I'm searching for. In this case, it's just one. I'm looking for headlines about Google. And then I say where I want it on the page, and I drop it in. And so what this does is now at the top, there's this horizontal news bar. And once again, the styling matches the styling of the page. The text is the right color, the hyperlinks are the same blue that you're used to, the border matches the page. And the way we do this is for all the controls and all of the APIs, we have publicly documented CSS. That means you can tweak the styling, tweak the layout, suppress some elements if you don't want, you know, the date to show up or something. And you can really, you know, do whatever you want. And again, this is not just the standalone headline bar. There's some integration here. So if I click on this link, I've set that to actually change the headlines to be about something else. And again, the search box allows me, as a user, to come to this page and then search for headlines that I want about another topic. So one more thing I want to show you is putting a map on the page. So this is similar to the other examples. I'm adding the search API, adding the map control, then configuring where I want it to be centered, dropping it into the page. And you can see that I've added a map up here that's centered on Beijing. And once again, if I want my users to be able to search for other things on this map, I can do that. So if I search for Paris, for example, it changes the map to be centered on Paris. So I have one more API I want to show you, and that's one for translation. And this is based on the Google Translate product that can do machine translation, automatic machine translation, among more than 20 languages. So you'll see that this post right here is in Chinese. I don't happen to speak Chinese, so let's say I wanted to have it translated into English. So here I'm loading the language API at the top, again with Google.load. I'm having it find the text on the page that I want to translate, calling the translate method, and then when that translation is complete, calling my function, which then takes the results of the translation and inserts it into a download on the page. So I do that, you can see that the post has been translated into English. There are more than 20 languages to choose from, so if I want it to be Spanish or Russian, I can do that, Italian, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, what this is about is taking these products that Google has invested a lot in building out infrastructure for and exposing that to you. So you get the full access to things like Google News and Google Maps and YouTube, and you can use them in your site. And so with that, I just want to end with a thank you, and thank you very much. Thanks, Marissa.
Thanks. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what you can do with Google Ajax APIs. There are also gadgets. Gadgets are an even simpler way to take content and services and embed them from Google's cloud onto your web application or your website using just a few lines of HTML or JavaScript. You can also create your own gadgets using your services and functionality based on the Gadgets platform. I'd like to invite Mark Lee, one of our technical lead managers here in China, to give you a demonstration of Google Gadgets.
就像 Marissa 所说的，就是说我们的网络呢已经是进入这个云计算的时代，然后呢有很多小工具呢大家都可以来利用。那么今天呢我就给大家做一个简单的示范，看看这个小工具是怎么来你怎么来用我们的小工具，或者是别人写的小工具，然后呢你自己怎么来制作你自己的小工具。OK。 比如说你在写一篇文章，关于这个北京租房趋势的一篇文章，那这个文章呢，现在呢基本上就只有一个图片。那图片呢，你也可以把它理解成是一种比较最简单的小工具，对吧？就是大家都非常熟悉，把这个图片呢放在你的网页上呢，已经非常简单的操作。现在视频的嵌入呢也是非常的简单。那比如说，如果你想把这个文章做得更为丰富多彩一点。 比如说你想把一个趋势的图呢，把它也放在这个文章里面，那你应该怎么做呢？谷歌有一个产品，有个产品叫生活搜索。那生活搜索呢，就是去外面爬所有的这个租房的一些信息，然后呢，通过数据的一些加工呢，把 把这个住房的趋势能够显示给大家。那比如说现在你想把这个趋势图呢，把它放在你的网页上，这个趋势图是一个动态的趋势图，所以它并不是一个图片。那非常简单，就是我们呢就是把这个内容呢把它小工具化。那这个呢就是你要放在这个文章里面的图，比如说你想看到的是这个二手房的这个市场的趋势。比如说你呢想以周围单位来看看这个住房的走势，对吧？所以你也可以看得出来，从这个图，这个基本上呢，北京的二手房的价格的走势，从今年年初到现在还是基本上持平的。那好，那这个呢就是这个 HTML 的代码呢，可以放在这个网页上的代码。这个咱们再重新回来把它放在这里。那咱们可以看看这个图非常简单的就嵌入到这个网页里面。那谷歌呢还提供其他方面的这个服务，能够让广大的这个网页设计师所用。比如说谷歌有一个产品叫谷歌热榜。那现在呢我大概用热榜呢搜索了一下房屋。那在房屋呢基本上呢就会看到这所有的用户，谷歌的用户具体在搜索什么。那这个搜索的这个地方呢基本上也是表明这个区会比较热门。那比如说现在你对这个热榜呢非常有兴趣，你想把它也放在你的文章里面去，那这个也是非常简单的一个操作还有谷歌的地图呢也有相应的功能，就现在你能够制作自己的地图，然后呢比如说你想把这个北京的一些比较热门的一些地带呢在地图上把它画出来，对吧？那这个内容的嵌入呢也是非常简单，你只要这个都已经有这个功能存在了，你可以嵌入。但是时间的关系呢，我已经把这个代码的事情已经放在这个网页里面，用这个注释的方式呢把它藏起来。那现在我把它这个注释呢去掉，所以大家可以看看这个这个地图是放在最后。那现在咱们看一看这个事情。你可以看到这个热榜呢，这也是动态的放到这个文章里面来。然后你也可以注意到一点呢，就是说这个热榜跟这个热榜是有一点不一样，从颜色上或者从这个数目上都有点不一样。那这个呢，就是说我们这个小工具呢是可以并做的。这个地图呢是在最后面，所以你可以看到这个地图呢其实也是动态，它并不是一个静态的地图，你可以把它移动，对吧？你点击的时候呢，它也会把它这个地图的地区本给你显示出来。所以呢，这个基本上是说非常简单，你可以把小工具，别人做的小工具 ，Google 呢只是小工具的这个制作商之一，但是你可以想象你自己可以做自己的小工具，然后把你的小工具呢让广大的网民所利用。好，那这个刚刚说的是一个内容的一个嵌入，那服务的嵌入呢我也给大家做一个示范。谷歌呢有一个工具叫做谷歌翻译，谷歌翻译的这个机器翻译的功能还是很强的。那比如说你现在呢想把这篇文章呢让广大的这个外国朋友也来看一看北京的趋势，非常简单，你跑到这个网页来当然这个网页我们原来这个网页呢是中文的网页，所以呢你就定制一下。那这个呢就是会把这个翻译的这个框呢会把它放在你的文章里面。那现在呢比如说我们把这个 HTML 的代码呢，把它放在这个文章上面。那这个时候呢，比如说我现在马上呢就把这个博客呢把它做出去。咱们看一下。所以你可以看到这个翻译的框呢就已经放在这个网页来了。那咱们看看这个服务是怎么来利用的。那现在比如说我想把它翻译成这个英文，这个也是动态的把这个网页送到 Google。所以呢，现在谷歌开发者被翻译为Google Developer Day， 然后呢北京的住房是这个分析，然后呢更有趣的这个热榜的这个地名呢也是会被同时翻译，这是这个小工具的里面的内容也会被同时翻译。所以这个基本上就大概给大家一个基本的概念，说这个小工具应该怎么来利用，还有它的服务应该怎么来利用。那下面我想跟大家再讲一下这个小工具是怎么来制作的。其实制作也非常简单，谷歌也是开发了一些工具，让大家非常简单的来制作这些小工具。比如说你想把这篇文章也把它做成一个小工具。然后呢，这样的话，别人可以把这个文章非常简单的把它放在他的网页上。那这个应该怎么来做呢？也是非常简单。那咱们现在呢，其实只要回到这个编辑状态，比如说这个是所有的 HTML， 对吧？那咱们把这个 Google 呢，也是开发了一个工具叫 Gadget Editor， 中文叫小工具编辑器。这个编辑器本身呢，也是一个小工具，它是可以放在 iGoogle 里面的。那现在我就给大家示范一下怎么用这个编辑器呢来 创作一个小工具，非常简单。那现在这当然是一个非常简单的一个小工具，对吧？你看一看这个一个非常简单一个 Hello World 的一个小工具。那现在呢，比如说我想把这个内容呢变成我的那篇文章，那把这个内容呢把它拷贝进来，然后呢，比如说把这个名字也换一下，比如说就是 housing， 这样呢把它存起来。好，这个文章已经存起来了。这样的话呢，你就基本上小工具的制作到此结束，所以非常简单。那其实这里面有一些我需要简单提一下的，就是基本上小工具呢，主要是有一个格式，它是一个 XML 的一个格式。然后呢，你可以具体的这个详细的技术细节呢，我们今天有那个分会场的讲座会具体给大家解释。基本上呢，就是你把这些简单的格式把它定义好，然后把你的内容把它嵌到里面去，那这样的小工具就已经做出来了。那下面呢，你就可以把它出版。那在出版的时候呢，其实你有很多个选择了。一个呢，就是说你如果想把它放到让别人能够把它嵌入到这个他自己的网页上面，那你就可以选择这个选择。然后呢，那现在呢，就是从示范角度讲，我就想给大家示范一下怎么把这个小工具放到 iGoogle 里面，就是这个个性化首页里面。所以大家可以看到这个小工具就是非常简便的把它嵌入到这个 iGoogle 的 page 里面。好，那下面呢，我再给大家再简单的示范一下怎么把这样的一个小工具在利用你自己的社区、你自己的网络，能够呢让这个小工具变得更为有用一点。比如说你有一大帮朋友，对吧？然后呢，你写了这篇文章，然后呢，你想让你的朋友呢来给你的文章提一些建议。那其实 Google 呢也有相应的这个工具来把这个工具呢把这个小工具呢把它社区化。怎么做呢？那比如说现在我再把这个所以呢现在再把这个内容呢把它拷贝回来，然后呢就这么改个名字。然后呢，这只是内容而已。那我们现在呢可以写一些代码，那这个代码基本上事先已经写好了，基本上大概是150行的一个小程序，里面大概100行左右呢，基本上呢就是说会把你这个会给你的朋友显示一个编辑框，然后呢，你这个小工具被启动的时候呢，它会去这个社区里面把你的朋友给找出来，然后你的朋友呢要是对你有一些评论的话，它会把这个评论呢把它显示出来，基本上就是这个小工具的一个非常简单的一个应用。那现在呢，我把这个小工具呢把它拷贝回来。对，就把它嵌入。那这个里面其实有一点多余的程序在这里。OK， 然后把它存起来。这样的话，你的小工具呢就可以把它社区化。那这样的话，咱们可以试试看。这个地方，那这个 Open 呢也是另外一种开放的平台，它也是支持这个小工具的界面。那咱们现在呢把咱们刚刚做好的这个小工具呢，把它放到这个开放的社区里面来。这个小工具的这个 URL 加进来，这样的话就可以把这个工具呢把它动态的加到你的加到这个社区里面来。所以你可以看到，刚刚我们写的这个150行程序呢，基本上是完成上面这个部分。那就下面这个部分，基本上我们刚刚做的这个HTML。那比如说，咱们现在可以随便写点东西对吧？ 那基本上呢，你是邀请你的朋友来评论这篇文章。那比如说你现在你的朋友另外一个朋友他也是在同一个社区上面，那他通过另外一个也是用一样的同样一个社区呢他进入了他自己的一个账户。所以呢，你可以马上看到，就是我刚刚呢，我叫Charlie003，刚刚这个创建的这个小工具呢，他已经看到了，而且呢，他还看到这个我的这个评论。那他一看，他可以浏览一下这个小工具做的怎么样，对吧？这是你做的小工具，那他觉得这个不错，他说 OK， 那好，那我要把它加到我的这个账户里面来。那这个非常简单，也是一样的操作，把这个加到他的账户。这样的话呢，他就可以开始写评论了，对吧？比如说very good。所以呢，这是 Alex， 这是我的朋友 Alex， 他给我的文章提供的一些建议那比如说我再重新回到我自己的这个地方呢，我只要再刷新一下，基本上能够看到我的朋友他给我提供的一些很好的建议。所以基本上通过这个示范呢，你给大家看到这个社区的很多潜力是可以挖掘的。你通过我们 Google 所发布的这个Gadget 这个小工具的 API， 还有我们的这个开放社区 Open Social 的 API 呢，你能够真的是挖掘你的朋友、你的朋友网络的一个潜力，然后呢，让它为你们所应用。所以呢，上面这个示范呢，就是给大家大概简单的演示了一下这个 Google 这个开放平台的制作应用希望呢也能够给大家呢带来一些灵感，然后呢也能够给大家创造一些商机。这样，谢谢。
Thanks, Mark. That gives you, hopefully these two demos give you a sense of how Google is making the cloud more accessible to developers. For those of you who want to leverage Google's cloud even more, we have a product called Google App Engine that enables you to run your web application on Google's infrastructure. It's a pretty new product, so let's first start off with what is it. The App Engine is a system for running scalable web applications on Google infrastructure. It's an effort to make the cloud more accessible by giving you a way to run your programs inside of Google's cloud of servers and services. The idea is that you write your code in Python, upload it to Google servers, which take care of hosting and scaling your application. Right now, Google App Engine is in preview release, which means that apps can run for free as long as they are within 5 million page views per month. We expect after the preview, people will be able to run beyond the free quota of 5 million page views per month, paying only for the bandwidth, storage, and computation they use beyond the free quota. We built Google App Engine because we saw that developers who were building web applications actually faced some pretty hard problems. Python and 5 million pages per month for free. We found that people who were building applications had some pretty hard problems. First, you have to write the code. Then, you have to configure Apache servers, SQL databases, and tables to make sure it all works. And then you have to find somewhere to run the application. And that means machines. Maybe virtual, maybe physical machines. And that takes money. But in addition, it also means that you need to set up monitoring and logs and maintain these things as your apps get popular. So even more work. And as it gets more popular and gets more users, you have a new set of challenges. You have to shard your database, get more machines, load balance, and scale your app to multiple servers. All of this represents a lot of hassle, even for the simplest web apps. With that in mind, we developed App Engine to be easy to start and easy to scale. The idea is that you write some initial code, you use the SDK to test it out on your own computer, and then you upload it and deploy it on Google servers. If you wrote your app carefully, using the App Engine's built-in APIs, you'll be able to scale to millions of users with no further work on your part. App Engine launched just a few weeks ago, but we're already starting to see some very interesting applications running on it. I thought I would share a few examples. The first is Tweetwheel. Tweetwheel is an app that someone built based on the popular microblogging site called Twitter. What Tweetwheel does is it shows you graphic visualizations of how your friends are connected to each other. It runs entirely on App Engine, fetching the data from Twitter, doing its computation, and then sending the data to the user, to the end user for rendering. We also have seen an interesting application called Later Loop. This is a bookmarking application where people can browse the web, and when they find something they'd like to read, they can bookmark it for later use on their mobile phone. Both of these applications are written entirely on App Engine and run entirely on App Engine. And one of the best parts of Google App Engine is that developers have told us that running something on Google App Engine is very easy. From start until it's actually running with real users can be just a matter of hours. As you can see here from the company Pixverse, they built an application and had it running in less than 3 hours. This is why we created Google App Engine, basically to make it easy to start developing as well as easy to scale. We talked about the cloud, now let's talk about the client and making it more powerful. And as I said before, in this era of the web, the dominant client is in fact the browser. If you remember, we talked earlier about the gap in capabilities between the user experience on the browser versus native platforms or runtimes, and how we want to narrow that gap to make browsers more powerful. One thing we've introduced is called Gears that aims to do just that. Gears is an open source desktop plugin that works to enable rich applications from across, that you build to actually make better use of the browser, doing things that were previously only possible on desktop platforms. The first functionality we've released in Gears includes 3 things. 1, a local server, which enables applications to run even when offline, when the user isn't connected to the internet. 2, a local database, which provides a way to store and access that data locally when the user is offline. And 3, worker pools, a way to do complex computation such that you don't lock your own application or the browser while it's processing. And there's more to come. Gears is just getting started, and we look forward to working with you, our developer community, to build out new features that can make the client more and more powerful. And then finally, there's connectivity. How do we keep it pervasive and make it more persistent? The explosion in wireless usage around the world has been great for users, but it's been challenging for developers. Currently, developers have to contend with a very complicated mobile stack, where some pieces are open and some pieces are closed, and it differs from carrier to carrier. Since it was open tools and standards that made the web so successful, there's a clear need for a platform that is open to everyone: carriers, manufacturers, developers, and most of all, users. In response to this need, Google invested in a project called Android. Android is entirely open source, and we believe it represents a world-class mobile stack, from the very lower levels to the application level. This is being created as part of the Open Handset Alliance, a partnership of 34 companies that have come together around Android. And we hope the mobile industry will embrace this open source stack to bring the best capabilities to consumers and improve the experience for developers as well. The first handsets and services that use Android will be deployed in the second half of this year. So we've talked about the client, we've talked about the cloud, and we've talked about connectivity. Now let's talk about something that touches all 3 things: the social web. It's clear that the web is inherently social, and what's starting to happen around the social web is that it's evolving in the same way that the internet evolved. It's based on simple standards and interoperability and the connection of information. And that's what open social is all about. Open social is about making the web more social, creating more and better social apps for end users, and making it easier for developers to participate in the social web. At a fundamental level, Open Social is a set of standard APIs that the community has defined and agreed upon so developers can make use of a single piece of programming and a single programming model across any site that participates. This means you can write a single application or gadget, and with very little modification, you can have it work on MySpace or Tianya. You could have it work on Ruyao or Xiaomei. The response to Open Social here in China has overwhelmed us as we've met with various companies and sites over the past few days. More and more people have signed up to participate in Open Social. And these are even more partners worldwide who will be participating either as a container or a contributor to the Open Social effort. With so many containers participating in Open Social, your application or gadget has the potential to reach more than 300 million internet users. Open Social is an open standard that's been nurtured by a nonprofit organization, opensocial.org. There's also a reference implementation called Shindig, which makes it easy for sites that are adopting Open Social to launch even more quickly. Shindig is also an open source project hosted by the Apache Foundation, a prominent open source organization. We have a lot of sessions today that go into more depth of how you can program on Open Social and how to build on top of it. We also have an Open Social hackathon tomorrow, June 13th, and we hope you can join us for that as well. We look forward to seeing all of the great applications that you end up building with Open Social. I hope that the keynote today has given you a glimpse into what Google is doing for developers. The rest of the day is devoted to in-depth technical sessions where you can learn more about Gears, Android, gadgets, Ajax API, Open Social, and learn how to build things on top of them while interacting with people from Google who work on these projects. Google is interested in making the cloud more accessible, the client more powerful, and connectivity even more pervasive and usable for developers. The web is the preeminent platform of our time. It belongs to you, belongs to us, and is ours to move forward. And we're committed to moving it forward in a consensus-based way. We hope to discuss this more with all of you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
So, 让大家再用热烈掌声感谢Marissa 给我们做的精彩的演讲。今天呢，我们的会议马上就要开始了。那其实简单的跟大家说一下我们今天这个一些内容的一些准备。我们总共呢有4个主题线。然后呢，大家呢可以凭你们自己的兴趣选择。主要是有一个是地理平台，讲这个 Google Maps 它的一些应用，还有 Mobile， 要是讲 Android， 刚刚Marissa也提到。讲 Social， 社交平台讲 Open Social，Marissa也提到了。还有最后呢，讲各种各样的这个实现平台，只要是 gadget API 的应用，刚刚我们也给大家做一些一定的示范。所以呢，希望大家能够满载而归。今天还有呢，我们今天有8个合作伙伴呢，也来参加我们的这个开发者日活动。腾讯、大众点评、天气、天涯、金山、聚友、趣南还有赶集，他们都来到我们这个现场，然后呢，他们会给大家展示他们的产品。那他们的产品呢，有些产品会用到我们谷歌的这个平台，但这个平台是属于大家的，就像Marissa所说，所以希望大家能够尽兴而来，然后呢尽兴而归，谢谢大家。